Welcome back once again to Dynamo's Dozen, the podcast that we bring you each and every single week, where we talk about whatever may be on our minds, from pro wrestling, sports, entertainment, music, movies, muesli, fresh shocks and jocks, and everything in between, never forgetting the talc. And yes, we have been on hiatus for the last 2 weeks. Niall has been in some of my favorite places over the last 2 weeks. I have been stuck here in, I suppose, a lot of sunshine and now a lot of rain, but busy man as well. So trust me, I haven't had time to shit or wind my watch. And Niall has been enjoying the sunshine while he's getting some renovations on his lovely home as well. And of course, made that big trip on the weekend over to Wales to watch the Clash at the Castle. So we've been busy, man. Niall's still a busy man with the podcast and the shop. I don't know, I think I've hit menopause, so I'm just trying to get everything into one and find my place in the world.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong with taking a recess, if they like, and having a look at things.
It's okay. Full disclosure, we're going through a kind of a home move and stuff at the moment, and all this kind of stuff that you know well, Niall, takes a lot of time and energy. So, but yeah. The band is back together, and we've a lot to talk about. I suppose before we get on to your trips away, and there's only kind of one place to start. AEW, if by design or just by self-destruction, have kind of blown up all the news that WWE have worked hard to do in the right way. I think by now everyone has seen the latest pipe bomb from one CM Punk, and good Lord, I mean, my phone blew up, as you can imagine, because of the topics of discussion. Kind of things I've been calling, that I've heard about these guys. I don't know them personally, but things I've heard over the years that we've heard Cornette accuse the Elite of are kind of almost coming to the light again a little bit. A little bit of backstage, him, messing about. But with this Chicago boy and Ace Steel, they're not really the type to sit down and take it lightly, right?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. With regards to our friends Cole Cabana, we've had first-hand experience on that one.
So, you in particular.
So we don't need to get into that one.
No, we leave that.
I know the kind of a-hole that guy is. But yeah, look, it doesn't surprise me. We said that right from the beginning of AEW, that when you give these guys these manufactured positions in the company and this little bit of power in terms of the booking and the structure and stuff like that, and you're rewarding them with that, it's going to cause a problem. Somewhere down along the line, it's going to cause a problem. You're going to bring in talent like Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson and Claudio and CM Punk and MJF and Moxley and guys like that, and those guys are not going to necessarily want to be told what to do by the Elite. And somewhere along the line, it's going to come out and it's going to get fractured, and it's going to become a problem and it's going to blow up. And the strength and depth is not in there in AEW to control that and dampen it down before it becomes public knowledge. Whereas if that was in WWE, yeah, it might get out, but it would be dampened down very quickly. Hunter wouldn't tolerate that. Vince certainly would have not tolerated it. Which leads me to believe, I'm not too sure whether this is the real McCoy or whether it is the work within the work, as we call it sometimes.
I think what we'll do for the moment is we'll take it at face value, as if it's not a work, because me and you have spoken off air about this, and we have our own. I'm a shrewd cat as well as you are, Niall. Like, I can see when someone's. But I think the one thing I will give CM Punk is that he's a great actor, regardless, and he's great at blurring the lines, isn't he? You know what I mean? Because even with the pipe bomb, you're like, okay, it's a work shoot, but like, how much of this does he really mean?
Yeah.
Like,
But even the build up when they were talking on the scrum, the presser afterwards, and Tony was talking about MJF versus CM Punk and all, and he goes, I'm just sick of working these young pricks, all this kind of thing, you know what I mean? And it's just, and Khan is just taken aback by it. But I think the problem that they have, and we said it today in our WhatsApp group as well, WWE at the moment is absolutely knocking it out of the park. And
It's
obviously
night
we
and
sort
day,
of
isn't it?
felt it was going to happen anyway once Hunter was back in there and Steph and the old man was out of the way a little bit. And we can see what's starting to evolve. We're starting to really get back into that product that we really love.
Yeah.
And the only way the other side can capture any sort of momentum is from stuff like this. Because it generates interest and stuff like that, and it generates click and all that kind of stuff. Other than that, when you look at All Out, which was a decent show, and you look at Clash of the Castle, they're poles apart. They're in different solar systems.
Yeah.
Literally like
Yeah.
watching
And that was a Dazzler line, wasn't it? Different solar systems. Like,
yeah, that's what we spoke about coming home on the boat. We were talking about AEW and stuff like that, and we were going, no one's capable of touching these boys. And the problem that you have now is a number of those roster members over there, they're starting to be turned a little bit and starting to look over at WWE again. And I'm sure Johnny Gargano going back as well was a big one for them, because he could have easily went to AEW.
yeah, 100%. I mean,
And
it's
I think that's a sign. We know Braun Strowman returned last night. And we
look
know,
great.
yeah, absolutely. And we know that more than likely Bray Wyatt's on the way back. It's probably the worst kept secret in wrestling. So if those guys are happy to go back and they're being sold a sort of an image over the next year or two of what the plans are and how the product is going to evolve and all that kind of stuff, and they're happy to go back, considering how bitter they were about it, and especially if you listen to Braun Strowman, how bitter he was about WWE, for him to go back, they must have great plans.
Yeah.
And that's all I can really add to it. Like, if we take it on face value, like it didn't sound good. Chairs were flying, lads were getting bitten, all this kind of thing. But then you get the line at the end, we'll sort all this out at Dynamite. Well, if I
Now,
took
I
a
don't know how true that line is or what. And I think I just wanted to say as well, I think the one thing I do agree with Punk at the start of it, of this show, is I know a couple of these guys as well. We don't present ourselves as journalists as such.
no,
We bring shows. It's the same way with you with the upper tier.
yeah,
We bring content. We create shows. You know what I mean? We're
yeah,
hosts of shows. We're not the dirt guys, and
yeah,
never ever have we been or tried to be since Dynamo's doesn't started, and of course the network and etc. etc. So I do agree with Punk, calling out some of these guys, Alvarez and all these guys out, because these are the type of people that could get worked into that. Punk could have went back and had, one of his little, which is kind of what I'm drinking here. These nice little flavored waters,
little spritzers,
beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Well, the non-alcoholic spritzers, yeah, they're pretty good.
Mm.
But they could have been there laughing. Him and Omega just going, "We fucking got them. This is a great way to get them." For all we know. So that's what we're not bringing that, but we're bringing what we're hearing at face value.
Yeah.
I suppose there's probably a little bit of truth, and behind every truth, that's when a great story comes out. Because shout out to Dirty Dutch Mantel. Thank you for you putting me onto his show. He's fantastic. Excellent. And he said Jerry Jarrett always had like a poster, like a little quote thing up in his office, and it said, "If you make it personal, it'll sell." And I think Punk is literally a veteran now at this stage. We heard stories that Jericho was the one to break it up, and then apparently Punk and Kenny Omega had words later and tried to hash it out, but it didn't go too well and stuff. So look, I mean, for me, I don't really like seeing the boys fight, but I mean, I suppose the part of me is that I do think these guys are dweebs. You know what I mean? I think the likes of the Bucks and all are dweebs. They don't actually listen to veterans and people that try and give them advice. And I think that's probably what we're looking at. Maybe that Punk is blurring the lines here.
Yeah, well, I mean, how many, if you go back and you look even to our Podman days when AEW was sort of in its infancy and stuff like that. Yeah. We did mention a few times that they had a lot of talent backstage that could impart a lot of really good advice. And we did identify at the time that there would be certain sections of that roster that would pan that off and not give a shit. And I don't know how many episodes of the Podmen between myself, yourself, Jay, and Joe, we actually said that we identified the guys who would be looking at Aaron Anderson and Tully Blanchard and Jake Roberts and guys like that and saying, yeah, great, but you know, I'm selling 1,000 t-shirts here a day. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And this
Exactly.
and this is and this
Exactly.
is this is the business that they're in. It's a different business. The business that Punk and Jericho
Yeah.
are in is not the same business that Omega and the Bucks are in, and I firmly believe that.
No. No.
Um,
And
they
I feel bad a little bit for Hangman Page because he's kind of our boy. We kind of latched onto him, didn't we, at the start? And I think if he's kind of been given wrong advice, and if it's true that he's went out and gone into business for himself and stuff like that, and that's why Punk's given the receipt, you're kind of going. Again, these young lads are getting swayed into this elite thing. Now, Cody obviously saw that this elite thing is bullshit and just decided I'm splitting.
yeah,
I'm a real pro
absolutely,
wrestler. You know what I
absolutely,
mean? I'm going back
absolutely.
to make up with Hunter
Yeah,
because the throne breaking might have been a gimmick, but the guy I'd rather work for this guy. I suppose you'd have to before we wrap up. Kind of feel a little bit bad for Tony in all of this, but he's kind of brought it on himself, hasn't he, by trying to take on everything and be the new Vince McMahon. I think he really needs to get some sort of talent relations guy in. Like, I don't know whether you put Jim Ross in that position again. Maybe he's too old for it.
but the problem the problem with that is when it kicks off like that, and you have that level of talent going at it, who's going to sort it? That's when you need.
Jericho,
That's when you
like he
need.
can't do everything.
Yeah, but even Jericho, I mean, is Jericho at this stage going to want an appetite for that? He could easily sort it out, but I mean, I don't know whether he wants to be in that kind of, if that's where he wants to be at this stage and stuff
Role.
like that. And you're
Yeah.
looking at Khan.
Yeah.
Khan is there. He's just like a deer in the headlights, really. He's just awestruck by these guys. These are guys who he loved watching wrestling, and now they're around him like his buddies. And at
Mm.
some stage, it's going to come along where someone doesn't like a title change, or someone doesn't like creative, or someone doesn't like a direction that they're going. And then, boom, it kicks off, and there isn't the strength there to sort it out. And the problem is, it's kind of like NWO again, isn't it? It's kind of that
Yeah.
NWO
It
feeling
really
again.
is. It
Tail
really
end now,
is.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about tail end. And it's like,
When there was 20 people in it and it had to be the red and the black versus the white and the black. Yeah, no, I
yeah,
agree. I
yeah, this
agree.
is there's no strength in there to sort this kind of stuff out. And if it's something that they have planned, I would think if it did come out that way, and I know you want to take it at face value, be a bit of credibility lost there. I think a little bit, you know what I mean, in terms of what's being put out and stuff like that. But I just don't know. Look, if it's real, it's real. I'm sure there's issues there and stuff like that. But I just think I don't know with AEW. I think in terms of structure and control and planning and all that kind of stuff, they're kind of flying by the seat of their arse at the moment, and they're just about getting over the hill at times.
Yeah.
And it's
If
a
it's
little.
planned, well done. If
Mm,
it's planned, well done. You know what I mean? And it works out and it comes into a fruitful storyline,
yeah,
well done. If it's also legit, I know we like to have fun, and if it's also legit, there is a certain level of professionalism that you like to keep as much as we like here in the dirt and stuff like that. I mean, it shouldn't come into fucking
mm,
fisticuffs backstage and chairs flying around. But then again, I suppose I'm old school as well. You know what I mean? It's like sort it out like men and fucking leave it there and leave it at that. It's just it all came out very quickly. So look, let's put a pin in that and let's move on to the
yeah.
main
We'll
event.
we'll keep an eye on it as we go along.
Oh, of course,
Keep
man.
an
We'll
eye on
talk
it as
about it
we go.
next week. I'm sure by this
Yeah.
stage next week, we're going to revisit it. Clash at the Castle. We watched this from very different vantage points.
Not really now. Not really.
Okay, well, probably. Yeah, I saw you. Yeah, I saw. But man, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I thought this was an absolutely fantastic show. I thought the marketing behind it, even from my perspective, watching it on the TV, I don't know what way they had set it up from your perspective.
Yeah.
I'm sure they had the build up and all on the big screens for you guys
Yeah.
as well. They really hold in on that SummerSlam '92, didn't they?
Yeah.
The first big show back since then. Principality Stadium, uh, very impressive stadium. To be fair,
Yeah.
it always has been. Um, I thought this was H's first show, first pay per view, so
Yeah,
to
because
speak.
he sort of came in the midst of SummerSlam, didn't he? So
Yeah,
there wasn't a whole
yeah,
lot he could change. But this was really, really good. We had a great trip. We started off, got the boat at 8 o'clock that morning over to Holyhead, and then it's about a 4.5 or 5 hour drive right along the bottom beautiful. Like shout out to any Welsh viewers that we have.
Shout out to Dazzler, by the
Yeah,
way,
absolutely.
for
But he loves driving
yeah.
anyway. But any shout out to any Welsh
I'm
subscribers or
driving me
viewers we have.
mad. I love you, Dazzler.
But the Welsh countryside is unbelievable. I'll send you on some pictures later. Some of the pictures we took of sweet valleys and stuff like that was unbelievable. But then we got in there. We went over to shout out the Toys and Masks warehouse just outside Cardiff. And we picked up a few nice little bits, I have to say now, that you'd be very impressed with.
You'll have to send me some photos of this as well. Dazzler made me jealous on one particular item, and I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah, this was like a warehouse covered in dust, and you kind of had to blow the dust off the figures nearly to see them and stuff like that. But
that's good.
We found some real hidden gems. Some real nice stuff. Then we went over to Smith's and we had a look see what Smith's had, and then we went to the Superstore on the Friday night, and we met Georgia Smith, who's an absolute sweetheart, and she had the hair done. I think I sent you the picture. She had the hair done like Davy Boy with the beads and everything was class. His dad was there. Got to meet his dad, and I think it was the brother. I'm not too sure. There was another chap there. It might have been George's boyfriend. I'm not too sure.
That's an older brother as well, though. So maybe.
Yeah, this guy looked younger, so he might have been George's boyfriend or husband. I'm not too sure. But she was an absolute sweetheart. But there was a real feel around the city all weekend of 92, Brett, Davy Boy, and when you walk through Cardiff, they had all the banners up around the city. And Davy Boy was on a lot of the banners as well. So it was really, really nice the way they did it.
Class.
So then Friday we got up and we went to WrestleFest. I don't know if you've seen online, a lot of people are calling it shitfest because it was a disaster. It was in a nightclub. This is a huge nightclub prison. Loads of different discos within a disco, if you like. So you'd probably have rave and hip hop and all sorts of different stuff. And Brett was in one of the rooms and he started off doing photographs. I don't know why they do this. You do a photograph and an autograph. So you come in and you get your photos done, and then you go back out and you have to queue again to get your autograph done. So it's a bit silly, really. Just get it all done at once.
Do it in one go, yeah.
There was delays on that. I think myself and Darren were about 2.5 hours in the queue. Tyson Fury was there as well. Mickey James, Nick Aldis, the Mountie, Summer Rae. There was a few others as well. But we were going mainly to see Brett. So we met Brett and we got a few figures signed. We got a picture with him and all that kind of stuff.
Seen that, yeah.
Really nice. And we had a quick little chat with him. We didn't want to delay anyone. But we were in a queue over 2 hours nearly. So what happened there was the plan was to go back to the hotel, get changed into another wrestling shirt and head off to the Clash. But we couldn't do that. So we ended up having to park the Jeep and stroll down to the Principality. I don't know if you've ever been to the Millennium Stadium, but it would be like if you dropped the Millennium Stadium onto O'Connell Street. It's bang slap in the middle of the city, like, and you don't really notice it as well. So I'm thinking that some of it must have been sunken a little bit underground because we were walking down looking for it and we said to a guy at the gate, where's the stadium? And there was a line of kind of red brick houses. And your man says, it's just at the end of those red brick houses. Now you would think if you're walking towards Crow Park, you can see Crow Park over the houses. It's massive. And
same
the Principality is pretty big
Wembley
as well.
For miles.
Massive, because of the way and all. But this has no like Wembley way to it or anything like that. We literally walked around the corner from these red brick houses and there the stadium was in front of us. Very not very inspiring from the outside because it didn't look like this big huge stadium. So we went in, there was no problem with the tickets around like that, got our seats. We were like 2 or 3 rows from the back. So we were way up there. This was like looking, you know that thing on WWE where they show you WrestleMania 3 and the ring is miles. That's what we were like.
Stevie Wonder section.
Yeah, and we were way up, like, and we went out the show setup was brilliant. The crowd were amazing, as you would expect from a UK crowd. Very educated, very ready to go, very up for it. Everyone on their feet, pumping, ready to go. The crowd was electric, really made the event as well. You'll notice that even in the first match, the Bailey match and stuff like that, they were giving Bailey loads and stuff like that. It was absolutely brilliant.
She looked great.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, absolutely. All the girls, in fairness, look great.
Oh, yeah.
So we kind of then, if you want to get into the matches, then there's obviously the first one.
We won't go match for match, obviously, because it was everyone knows the results at this stage. And we have a lot of content to get through. But I have to say, seeing Bailey back really kind of inspired me a little bit. So I honestly think Bailey could be in the top 3 on her day working wise. I just think she's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really, really good. And it was interesting as well because the crowd were going with her when they should have been against her, and she played up to it as well. It was brilliant as well. But there was some great bits in it. Obviously, Dominic turning on Edge and the dad was cool, and
that was a great match.
You know, and like a British strong style match. If you look at like Sheamus versus Gunther, they bet the absolute pants out of each other. I don't know if you've seen any of their pictures they put up afterwards of their chests and stuff. Good Lord, I know Sheamus is milky white, but good Lord, his chest was hacked up like a cheese grater. We went there. We popped out just before the Liv Morgan Shayna Baszler fight. We went down to get a drink and a bite to eat or whatever, you know. And when we came back up the stairs, and God, no, I mean stairs, we were like 50 steps up from where we come out onto the stadium.
Got your steps in.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is myself and Darren we're talking about now, two big lads. So we sat down and we just went, we thought we were going to have to call someone to give us oxygen, and you're up at that elevation as well, you know what I mean? It doesn't help.
Now you know how Flair felt in his last match, right?
Oh, 100%, yeah, and more. I thought Rollins was electric coming out like Elton John. I thought was absolutely brilliant. And myself and Darren then had a debate about Riddle during the match. Darren's fully in on Matt Riddle one day becoming world champion. I'm not too sure. I turned around to get the debate going. I said, I can never see him as a world champion. But really enjoyed the match, and I like Matt Riddle.
I will say one thing in Dazzler's defense there on that. I'm liking the kind of more aggressive side of him, I have to say. I think he's, you know, even the little promo on Raw, you know, where it got personal, like that was pretty good. That was good. But I'm with you. I definitely think Rollins has stepped it up a gear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. And we've been talking about this for what, the best part of a year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Stepped it up big time. And I know we're going to get into the main event. I think this is one of the best main events in a long time, personally.
Yeah, it was really well put together, even with like having Cross there, and everyone thought he was obviously going to jump the barrier and get involved and stuff like that and all, and it didn't happen. And then you see Austin Theory coming down with the money in the bank, and Tyson just cleans him out. Yeah, I have to say as well, Tyson Fury, he was at the WrestleFest, he was doing a signing. Until you actually see that guy in the flesh, you don't realize how big that man is. That man is a monster.
I get that. He seems like
huge. Yeah, and the thing about it is, he's so soft and placid when you meet him, but he's ginormous. And
he's not a bully. He's not a bully, like
no. But you'll know that if he hits you one, because I nearly thought I seen his fist coming out the far ear of Austin Theory when he hit him. And I have to say, Austin Theory took it like a champ, but it was a serious smack, like.
100%.
But yeah, and then the match was really cool. It was weird to see Reigns coming out on his own and stuff like that. It was kind of weird without having the three boys with him. And I kind of thought maybe that might be a shoe in to give. Like, I have to say, first of all, the UK crowd were all in on Drew McIntyre winning.
Yeah, I could feel that even from the camera.
They had the energy. They even played, if you noticed beforehand, I don't know if it was on telly or not, I'm sure it was, his old Titantron and his old music was really cool. And they went back, they showed some of the IWW footage and all the other footage he did from the indies and stuff like that, which was really cool.
And it's kind of nice. It's nice for us, like, as I was only talking to Kev, who was an old friend of me and Niall, by the way, not to make it personal. And we were just saying, like, you know, he probably wouldn't remember us at this point, but at one point we were all pretty tight, like, you know, and he used to come into the shop and all to you, and it's just great to see how far he's come, like, and he really, I thought that was a hell of a match. They literally put everything in the ring. I thought everything in the ring.
Absolutely.
The false finishes, the counts. I mean, Drew still looked really strong at the end of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Roman looked $1,000,000 as well. But like, just as a heel, his work, he's just gone to the stratosphere.
Yeah, and it was great as well that he waited to have the acknowledgement kind of a third of the way through the match, rather than at the start and give it away and stuff like that. And then people kind of thought that they weren't going to get it. But when they played Drew's old Titantron kind of thing, his old entrance music and stuff like that, the UK crowd, they were up on their feet again. They were convinced their boy was going to take the belt home and stuff like that. Even to the point where myself and Darren was sure Drew was going to get it, and I was all in a room. And I was saying, listen, I was saying to all, there was about 20 lads around me and stuff like that, and I was saying, lads, dry your tears. It's not going to happen.
No, well, I knew it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
What I will say is, for me as well, as someone who, you know, used to be so like, oh, I know what's going to happen, blah blah blah. You know, I was actually during this match, I was able to just let my brain enjoy, just actually suspend disbelief, as they say.
Yeah, enjoy the moment.
Enjoy the moment. And you know, Drew come in, and that moment at the end with, you know, Tyson Fury coming in and they're singing along, and you know, I mean, I thought Tyson didn't have a note in his head. Drew definitely wasn't having. Yeah. Drew should have been singing Motorhead.
I think the crowd thought something was going to happen there, because we had been shown footage of Tyson in the locker room with Roman and stuff like that and all. So we weren't sure whether this might be a setup for Crown Jewel where he took his head off with a short arm clothesline or something like that. Also, weren't too sure.
Really fantastic show, man.
I liked in the middle of the show as well, where they acknowledged Brett there and stuff like that, and they ran the thing for SummerSlam '92, which brought a bit of a tear to the eye, all right, with Davey Boy and stuff like that and all, and then. Yeah, it was just. I
know some boys in our group, because of the photo you had of Brett, probably caught him at like a really bad moment. But I actually saw a picture of him with the Mountie and a couple of other people.
Yeah,
and he actually looks pretty well for his age. To be
fair. I'll tell you how nice it was. You know, the Mountie. The Mountie went in and got pictures with him and got a few autographs. The Mountie did, just as a kind of a tip the hat kind of thing, sort of thing. It was really, really nice. And I think the Mountie was being interviewed on stage. And he actually made the point that he believed that Brett was the best ever.
Yeah, it's about time Jacques Rougeau acted like a fucking nice guy.
But it was kind of, it seemed like a nice moment and stuff like that and all, you know, where he went in and he was acknowledging that like he was as much a fan as we were, kind of thing, you know. So it was pretty cool and stuff like that.
It's nice to see that, isn't it? Like that's just pure another respect for.
Yeah, because you don't normally see it when we go to WrestleCon in the States and stuff like that. We'd find it very unusual. Like wrestlers would come over and talk to each other and stuff like that, but it'd be very unusual for a wrestler to walk over to another wrestler and ask him for
an mark almost.
Yeah, kind of thing. But I think a lot of that stuff these days is breaking down a little bit. So it was kind of nice to see it and stuff like that. It was kind of cool. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed your trip. I certainly enjoyed the show. I think WWE, like we just mentioned earlier when we were talking about AEW, is going from strength to strength. And that's no disrespect to AEW. We want it all to succeed. We don't want to see anybody go out of business. But WWE is riding the crest of a wave at the moment. And it's only going from strength to strength. And absolutely, shout out to Triple H and Co. I know Road Dogg and all is working with him closely as well, if I'm not mistaken. You know, all the guys in the back are doing a great job, and girls, obviously, with Steph. So, unbelievable. We said we'd do something a little bit different before we go into your news and you know, our segment that has gotten very popular, actually, this week in wrestling. We said because it's, you know, we're very UK-driven. You know, we grew up with UK wrestling, and you know, we thought, and I'm not going to lie, anyone that's listened to the show, they would have heard that it was Ariel Helwani who done his top 10 wrestlers, and I was listening to the latest Dutch Mantel show, and Dutch gave his top 10. He didn't agree with Ariel Helwani's at all. He didn't believe that Page or anything like that should be in it, which is fair enough. It's his prerogative.
Different times, different
outlook. Absolutely, but I was also a bit taken aback by Dutch that two particular workers weren't mentioned in it either. And you know, Shirley Crabtree was ahead of Dynamite Kid and Rollerball Rocco. So I'm just going to get the ball rolling, no pun intended. My first two that I had in was Rollerball Rocco and Dynamite Kid, obviously, because anybody who's anybody knows who they are of the modern era, especially going back and watching them. If you don't, and you only know Dynamite Kid, go back and watch these two boys working together in particular.
Yeah.
Good Lord. I believe Rollerball Rocco had a run in Japan as well as Black Tiger, didn't he?
I think he did, yeah.
So, which was obviously a gimmick that Eddie Guerrero had done later on. So, go and check that out. I also put in Mick McManus without a shadow of a doubt. I put Mick McManus in. I put Kendo Nagasaki in because of that gimmick. I think that gimmick was so.
So this must have been difficult for you, was it? Because when you set this task to me, I thought this would be easy enough. But you gave me the task of say top 5 or whatever it is, but we can shout out as many as we want. But I found it quite difficult because I was kind of torn between the world of sports stuff. I was torn between, the boys that went over to Stampede and all that stuff, and then you'd Regal and WCW and all the rest of it and stuff like that and all, and then trying to fit in the modern kind of guys that are there at the moment as well, who are knocking it out of the park and unbelievable. And I was trying to toy between where had everyone worked and where had everyone won a bit of gold and all that kind of thing to try and fit the list. But yeah, it was a tough one.
Well, I'll tell you what then. I've mentioned 4, so why don't you give me 4 and then I'll mention a couple of honourable mentions. Well, I'll give you my 5 then, right?
Yeah.
So I had Dynamite Kid.
Yeah.
In no particular order. Dynamite Kid is number 1. He's always
I didn't rank them. I just did a list because to rank them I thought would be unfair because of the periods and stuff like that.
And disrespectful and stuff like that. But I mean, everyone knows my feeling. I think, I'm with Brett. I think pound for pound Dynamite Kid is the greatest of all time. So and that's from any country. So I had Dynamite. I had Mick McManus. I had Kendo Nagasaki. I had Rollerball Rocco. And I had Fifth Finley. So they be 5, and then I have honourable mentions. So why don't you give me 5 then? Again, in no particular order.
Yeah, well, the five, I kind of picked out 6, but the 5 that I picked,
fair. No, that's fair.
The 6 that I picked out, basically, I put on the list. I didn't want to go too far back, although I've honourable mentions there. Obviously, the likes of Big Daddy and Joint Haystacks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course.
But I put in there Dynamite Kid, Davey Boy Smith, William Regal, Zack Sabre Jr., Pac, and Drew McIntyre. That was kind of in around the 5 or the 6 that I had.
That's nice, though. I like the way you mixed.
It's a bit of a blend. It's a bit of a blend. So I have a kind of a bit of old school. I have that middle area and a bit of new school. And then, do you want to give me some of your notable mentions? And then
I obviously have Drew in there because he's a British-based wrestler. I have, obviously, without a shadow of a doubt, I have Regal in there.
Yeah.
I had Gentleman Chris Adams.
Yes.
Of course, I had Davey Boy Smith as well.
Yeah.
And I went with, now, this is for selfish reasons, but I went with the vigilante John Moss, who I've been in the ring with, and I think deserves a mention too, because I mean, the guy is working over in Florida at the Performance Center at the moment, and he's there for a reason. If anyone ever wants to go back and watch any of his work, it's there for people to see. So I was, you said it was very difficult for me because a lot of it was with my heart. A lot of it was, from what I had grown up watching. Yeah. It would have been, and again, honorable mentions to the likes of, the Crabtrees and stuff like that. I mean, whatever about their, their reputations and stuff like that, they were legends, and shout out to Wayne Bridges and guys like that. But they were my top guys.
Yeah, I put in a couple of notable mentions, and some of them are kind of indifferent and stuff like that. But obviously, I had Big Daddy in there and Joint Haystacks because I kind of grew up with them on Sport on a Saturday and stuff like that. I had Wade Barrett, which I thought deserved a mention. Pete Dunne, obviously, who I think we watched him wrestle when he was a kid at 15 and stuff like that. And to see him now, even to see him at Clash, he was the most animated guy at Clash known. He was back on kind of home soil, and he was loving every minute of being home by the looks of things. He was well out there. Will Ospreay, I put in there as well as a notable mention. Chris Brooks, I also mentioned as well. And of course, Layla, who most people can tend to forget, who was, did a few bits when she was in WWE and stuff like that. We mentioned, and of course, Paige. You can't put that.
Yeah, I mean, Paige, like Paige, Paige and her family are friends of the show. Until and personal friends until we all.
Yeah, and then the other one I had in there was Nigel McGuinness.
Nigel McGuinness is a good show. I mean, you can make a case for Doug Williams as well. You know what
absolutely,
I mean?
Absolutely.
make a
Doug,
case
Doug
for them.
Williams should be at least on people's notable mentions.
Exactly.
He was a real pioneer for pro wrestling back
we
then.
go back, anyone listening now, I think, especially to our American listeners, I know there'll be some American listeners out there now, and some even UK listeners going, where's your boys like, Finn Balor and stuff like that? And we're like, but those who know, no, come on. Come on. But no, listen, the UK has always been one of the best scenes, ever in terms of creativity and just having its own unique style. I mean, a British style once you see it, and that's it. And I was lucky enough to have the pleasure of coming up through that system, back in the day, and I can look back at it with fond memories now, and know the legends that were spoken about by the likes of Andre Baker when we heard another legendary figure in British wrestling, Andre Baker, rest in peace.
Absolutely.
An absolute hero of mine. So yeah, 100%. So let's get into the fun stuff, Niall.
The week in wrestling.
Yeah.
History. It's an interesting one. I have a few from you. I started with 1990. Sting retained the WCW Heavyweight Championship against the Black Scorpion, portrayed by Al Perez, in the main event of Clash of the Champions 12. 1990. Seems a long time for me now. That was the year I did my leaving cert.
Jesus, I was getting excited for WrestleMania 6. I think that's all I could think about.
Yeah, there you go.
I didn't even know what was going on in WCW, if I'm being honest.
A couple of little bit more modern ones. 2005, WWE taped their first ever episode of Friday Night SmackDown, featuring a main event of Batista versus JBL in a bull rope match.
Oh, wow.
There you go. That was an interesting one that people forget about, and they bet the absolute piddler out of each other.
Yeah.
2014, the first ever episode of Lucha Underground was taped. And we go back. I thought I'd put in a few here in relation to the context of the week that's in it. So 1991, Bret the Hitman Hart defeats Erwin or Shyster in the final of the King of the Ring tournament in Providence, Rhode Island. This would be the last King of the Ring tournament to be held on an untelevised event. It wasn't televised. So there you go. There's an interesting one for you. 1991, Bret Hart. Shout out to Bret Hart. Met him at the weekend.
Yeah.
Awesome. Bit more modern. 2015, WWE announced the signing of Japanese women's wrestler Kanako Yurei. She will go on to have huge success under the ring name Asuka. So she was signed in 2015. Remember it well.
Wow.
Huge
plethora
around it and stuff like that. 1991, the NWA officially stripped Ric Flair of the World Heavyweight title this week. If you remember, he was moonlighting with WWF at the time and stuff like that. And he was refusing to give them back the belt and the deposit and all this kind of thing and all. And I have a follow-up to that later on in it, which is interesting as well. 2009, ring announcer Lillian Garcia announces she was going to leave WWE after a decade of working for the company. Lillian Garcia. Shout out to Lillian.
A music career, I believe. Country music.
Yeah, country music career and stuff like that and all. And has come back a few times for a few shows and stuff like that. Absolutely brilliant announcer and stuff like that. 2014. Bit of dark news for us here. Former WCW Tag Team Champion Sean O'Hare committed suicide at the age of 43. Could have had a huge career in wrestling, had an amazing look, and was a big dude. But unfortunately,
and a badass too. I think he had. Didn't he have a good background in Golden Gloves as well?
He did as well, and I think he was involved in the biker world as well. Wasn't he a big biker head as well? I think, as far as I know.
Yeah, he was a huge man. I remember seeing him live at a show in Belfast when we were literally front and center.
Yeah,
and I remember going,
monster.
He's a big unit.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to 1986 in Columbia, South Carolina, the American Dream, the son of a plumber, Dusty Rhodes, won the NWA World Television Championship for the third time after beating AA Arn Anderson.
Wow.
Another good one.
Wow.
1991, on the weekly primetime wrestling program, Ric Flair makes his WWF debut after more than a decade of representing the NWA and WCW. And in his possession, he had one WCW heavyweight title, announcing himself to be the real world heavyweight champion. So that was a nice
the
little
big gold
conundrum
with
of
him.
the two there
Yeah.
that I gave you earlier, you know.
Bobby the Brain Heenan used to like to hold it in the corner, very similar to how one Paul Heyman likes to hold the belts, eh?
Yeah, and very similar. Also, the Mr. Perfect was very similar with it as well, if you remember.
Yeah.
During his suit days. Where are we? Little bit of a tip I had again
London.
here. 1999, on an action-packed episode of SmackDown, the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith defeated the Big Boss Man to become the new hardcore champion, but shortly after relinquished it to Al Snow, if you remember.
Yeah.
But
they were long drawn out matches, weren't they?
Yeah. 1996, Dusty Rhodes' former valet in his brief WWF stint, Sapphire, passed away as a result of a heart attack in St. Louis, Missouri. And I've got one more for you. 2012, after teaming with Randy Orton to face CM Punk, you'll remember this one well. And Randy Orton. After teaming with Randy Orton to face CM Punk and Dolph Ziggler on Raw, Jerry Lawler suffered a heart attack live on commentary.
Yeah.
And Lawler's life had to be saved by CPR from WWE's Dr. Sampson. And we remember that one well. If you remember, it was practically at the announcers.
I'll never forget Michael Cole's reaction to that.
Absolutely.
Ever.
Yeah. Couple of notable birthdays. A man that I've had the pleasure of meeting this year, the Barbarian. Hard as nails, but a lovely man to talk about. 1958. Also, Wendy Richter, 1963. Low Key, 1979. Gillian Hall, 1980. The Blueprint, Matt Morgan, 1978. Molly Holly, 1967. Raven, Scott Raven Levy, 1964.
Wow.
Our very own Ready to Rumble, David Arquette, 1971, just a year older than me. And of course, the original Rock Don Morocco, 1949. And we rounded out with Trevor Murdoch. So they all celebrate their birthdays this week.
What year was Murdoch born?
I think Murdoch was, I'll get it now for you. You won't believe this, actually, because I was shocked. What year would you reckon?
80?
Spot on. 1980. Spot on. I couldn't believe he was that young. He's 8 years younger than me.
I just had this feeling that like he was like a tiny bit older than me.
He's 40. He's 42 this year. I can't believe he's that young with that snarl and that face and stuff like that. But hats off. Jesus. Happy birthday to all those people.
Absolutely. And
that is
Wendy Richter, who still might be on the show at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that was the key birthdays that I picked out there. There's obviously loads more and stuff like that, but these are the ones that stood out. And again, when I was going down through the week in wrestling history, I looked for little bits for Brett and Flair and Davey Boy and stuff like that, because the week that's in it and stuff like that. Yeah,
look, I love it. And you know what? It's always the perfect way to end the show, because it always ends on a high. You know what I mean? We don't like to end on these, you know. Anyone that knows the Podmen shows, we don't like to end.
We end on birthdays, which is always a good thing.
We end on birthdays. It's been an absolute pleasure once again, Niall. Always good to have the shopkeeper in town. And thanks for sharing your experiences with,
no problem.
You know, with that cool little trip that you had over. And I'm sure when you come back on next week, we can talk a little bit more about Orlando, and you probably hit the Hogan Beach shop and stuff. So there's always...
I actually, believe it or not, I didn't, because every time I drove by, it was closed. And the one time it was open, I was on the way to Disney to Star Wars with the boys, so I couldn't stop. They wouldn't.
Well, that's fair enough. Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
I'll get it next time.
But until next week, because you have another show to do now. So thanks for your time, as always. Next week, I'm sure we'll have far more to talk about again, because the weird and wonderful world of professional wrestling does not sleep, just like the shopkeeper. So until next week, for me, Ian Dynamo Kelly, for Niall the Shopkeeper Hogan, we are over and out.